Good evening, everybody. My name's Karita Gaib. I'm Director of Parent and Family Relations, and I'm so happy to welcome you to our October family webinar. I can't believe we've turned the page on yet another month here in the academic calendar. So as the sun is setting, so is September, and we're moving on into a brand new month. So we're really glad that you're here as we kick off another topic here on campus. So Fraternity and Sorority Life is one of the great organizations that encompass the Villanova student experience here at Villanova University. There's approximately 40% of our students who are involved in this type of activity here on campus. So really think about it as one of among 200 plus student organizations that are here on campus. So this is one part of the overall student experience, which also includes their academic growth, right? So this is a piece of the pie. I think it does have incredible benefits, but I really want to kind of frame it in an overall picture here for us. So you're going to hear some really interesting themes tonight. You're most importantly going to learn about the joining process and how our students can even learn about fraternity and sorority life and make a decision ahead of time if this is something that is for them. You're going to learn about costs. You're going to learn about some of the great opportunities that the students have ahead of them. And you've also submitted some really great questions that are built into this presentation. However, throughout the night, we will be answering questions live, and you'll actually see that Sarah Hernandez, the Director of Fraternity and Sorority Life, is also online here with us. She'll be answering the questions that you submit through that Q&A button that you'll find down at the bottom. We are not using the chat function tonight. It's a lot for us to keep our hands on and our ears on. So please, if you have any questions for us, drop those into the Q&A button. We will try to answer them live. As we start to see things trend, we also lift them up to the frequently answered questions that we get at the end of the presentation. So housekeeping is done. I want to turn this over to our experts here on campus, Anthony Silberto and Jennifer Toomey. They'll get us started and lead you down a great discussion, I think, this evening. Thanks so much for being here.
Awesome. Well, welcome y'all. As Karita said, we are Jen and Ant, but we work in the Office of Fraternity and Sorority Life. So in my role, I'm assistant director, and I work primarily with our Panhellenic community, 8 sororities, as well as part of our IGC community. So I also work with our NPHC organizations, or historically Black Greek letter organizations, and leadership programs for the office.
Hi, everyone. Thank you for being here tonight. My name is Anthony Silberto. I'm one of the assistant directors here in the Office of Fraternity and Sorority Life. And in my role, I serve as the advisor for our Interfraternity Council, so 9 and growing men's organizations. I also oversee health and well-being for our entire community, as well as communication and marketing for our department. We are so excited for you all to be here and learn more about what fraternity and sorority life looks like at Villanova. So to kind of give you an idea of what we're going to cover tonight, we're going to start with what FSL looks like at Villanova, talking about who we are as an office, what our community looks like, who they are comprised of, and what our joining process for each of our councils is. We'll then move into what the membership experience looks like, share some really significant data with you, and then move into resources. And then at the end, as Karita mentioned, we'll open for questions. Again, throughout the presentation, feel free to put those questions in the chat, the Q&A box feature, and Sarah will do her best to answer all of them, and then also pass any trending questions to Jen and I to answer at the end. So to start, an overview of who FSL is, how we are situated at Villanova. We are part of the Division of Student Life. The Division of Student Life is comprised of 13 different departments across Villanova's campus. We are a very vibrant, enthusiastic, and eclectic department and division. The 3 core focuses of all of our departments are creating a welcoming and inclusive community, connecting and caring for students, and then also supporting them through their entire Villanova journey. So from the first year experience all the way through graduation and beyond. We really lean into the St. Augustine quote, "Become what you are not yet," and challenge students to step out of their comfort zones, join organizations that they're passionate about, and then also explore new organizations that they may find value in. So Fraternity and Sorority Life at Villanova is the department that oversees all of the fraternity and sorority life membership experiences. We have 25 organizations and growing, as I mentioned, and our main mission is to develop students holistically through this co-curricular experience by guiding them to embrace differences and acknowledge them, lead ethically, make smart decisions, give them leadership tools and development, and then also foster a healthy and balanced membership experience. Again, we will say this multiple times tonight, but this is one of the experiences that students can get involved in at Villanova. Yes, we firmly believe in the cause of fraternity and sorority life, but we recognize that sometimes it's not for everyone, and we want them to have the autonomy to go through the process and see if it is for them, ask questions, and advocate for themselves. So when we boil down fraternity and sorority life, we have 5 full-time staff members. So we have our director, Sarah Hernandez, who's on the back end answering all of those great questions. We have Jen and I serving as assistant directors. Taylor is our program specialist, who works on anything large-scale programming for our department, as well as advising our programming board and the other half of our Intercultural Greek Council when it comes to our historic multicultural organizations. Alice Thomas is our administrative assistant who helps with all things in our department and helping students. We also have a graduate assistant who is great, Jessica Langlis, who works on special projects and working with our different councils in those capacities. And then this year, fortunate to have 2 amazing students who are affiliated, Ellen Phillips and Ellie Carlson, to help with all things fraternity and sorority life.
Okay, so some things that our office does, because sometimes there are some misconceptions about what it is that we provide and what we do. So wanted to kind of think through what it is that we do to support these organizations on our campus. So we have 3 communities that we help support. So our Intercultural Greek Council, our Interfraternity Council, and our Panhellenic Council. We'll refer to them quite a bit throughout the evening using different acronyms. So IGC is that first one, our culturally based organizations. IFC is our men's organizations, and Panhell or Panhellenic is our women's organizations. So we provide support to them both at the council and the chapter level. So each of those communities has an executive board made up of members from different organizations within their sub-communities that we provide support to. They do programs, initiatives, they help with self-governance, things along those lines. But then we also support the chapter leadership as well. So anyone that has a leadership position in their respective organization, primarily chapter presidents, but we see honorable mentions from our recruitment folks, new member educators, event planning, all of those different pieces. So we really try to help them as they ascend through their leadership journey and provide some developmental options for them too. And then we also do some programming. We actually have a program that's happening right now in another part of campus. We do workshops and keynotes. We try to provide opportunities for alumni engagement, so you can catch us at homecoming in a few weeks as well if you yourself are a fraternity or sorority alum from Villanova. So we do a wide variety of things, but we're really heavy into that support and advisement piece to make sure that students are becoming the best versions of themselves outside of the classroom as well. A little bit about our community. Karita started sharing this as well, but between 35 and 40% of our undergraduate students are affiliated with a fraternity or a sorority. That percentage fluctuates based on graduation at the end of the spring, getting new members at various points in the semester. So it is a dynamic moving number, but typically comfortably in that 35 to 40% mark. Our spring GPA for the entire community was a 3.43. So we've got some smart students among us as well. And we have 25 organizations currently. There's an asterisk there because some of our groups we share with other campuses, we are expanding in some places as well. So we'll dig into that a little bit more as we go on. But in general, we operate with 25 organizations on our campus for the time being. And then these are our 3 communities. Again, just wanted to revisit that language since you'll hear us refer to those acronyms. So on the next slides that Anne is going to go through to think about how these organizations are embedded into the Villanova landscape. Just wanted to provide those as reference points again before we dig into that.
Amazing. Thanks, Jen. So when we talk about social landscape at Villanova, once again, it is one experience that students can get involved in as a co-curricular experience. By nature, fraternities and sororities are social organizations. The purpose of them was to build community, find sense of belonging amongst each other, and what that looks like in providing an experience outside of the classroom with folks that have similar values as yourself. So once again, 35 to 40% of students are affiliated, which is about 2,600 to 2,700 students. When we break that down further, it's about 31% all fraternity, 69% all sorority. So we do lean heavy into our women's organizations. One, because of the demographics at Villanova, and two, the experiences and membership offerings that are there for our students. 90% of our FSL members are involved in at least one other organization outside of their chapter. I think that's probably 2 to 3 at least, but when we surveyed them, we found at least 90% were in a one, which is really important because they're making those connections across campus, whether they're other members in fraternities and sororities or outside of it, and sharing those experiences and those passions. When we look at chapter sizes, when it comes to community, our Intercultural Greek Council, or IGC, typically ranges from 1 to 15 members. Now, as Jen mentioned, we do share some affiliation with other campuses in the Philadelphia region. Those are referred to as citywide chapters, and we have 2 citywide chapters here that share membership at Drexel, University of Pennsylvania, St. Joe's, etc. And when we get to our IGC slide, we can dive a little bit more. So we may have one Villanova member here on campus, but there could be 8 others in their chapter. When we look at the IFC community, membership ranges from 25 to 125. That is something unique to our campus and why one of the reasons we are growing as a council. At our largest capacity, 125 is there, but average chapter size is around 80 to 85 for our organizations. And then for Panhellenic, they range from 190 to 250, again, just based off of size, the way the National Panhellenic Conference sets total, and those pieces as well. When we look at how fraternity and sorority life fits into the academic landscape, once again, it is a part of the co-curricular experience. We say they are learning the hard skills for their future profession in their classes, and we are teaching them the soft skills of future profession in their membership experience, right? So giving them more around leadership development, conflict resolution, how to develop budgets and, lead groups and teams, how to have that peer-to-peer conversation around support, right? So we say the soft skills are learned there, and then their hard skills are learned in the classroom. And when we break this down by major, as you can see, the majority of our students are represented in the College of Liberal Arts and Sciences, followed by the School of Business, College of Engineering, and College of Nursing. This is very in line with the demographic of other Villanova students and how we look at academics across campus, whether it's in fraternity and sorority life or outside of it. And then when it comes to eligibility requirements, we have 3 requirements that all of our students need to meet if they would like to pursue membership in a fraternity or sorority. The first is a 2.77 cumulative GPA. The second is they need to complete 1 full semester as a degree-seeking matriculated student. So we view completed 1 full semester as 12 completed credit hours. 12 completed, not attempted. So that is one note sometimes we have to circle back on. And then the third is being good disciplinary standing with the university, both academically and behaviorally. There may be additional requirements per community, such as event attendance, registration fees, etc., which we'll dive into when we talk about each individual council's joining processes.
One thing I'll note on this slide too, when we're looking at the 1 full semester, sometimes we have some friends ask questions about dual enrollment credits or AP or IB credits. So those don't count towards this requirement. We want to make sure truly that you have a full semester to be here, get established, get your academics kind of settled in, if you will, for that transitionary period. So just to kind of answer that in case that becomes a question. So now we'll dig into more of the specifics about each of our 3 communities, talk a little bit about their joining processes. So we'll start off with our Intercultural Greek Council, or IGC. So we have, oh gosh, we grow every time. So we have 8 organizations that sit in our Intercultural Greek Council. So the first 5 of them are NPHC organizations, or historically Black Greek letter organizations, often referred to also as Divine Nine organizations. And they all have their designation following their name. So you can see that whether or not they're a fraternity or a sorority, and then nicknames at the end of it, kind of in the parentheses. The last 3 organizations are culturally based organizations as well, that just fall under different umbrella groups at the national level. So Lambda Theta Alpha is a Latin sorority, historically Latin. Lambda Phi Epsilon is historically Asian, and Sigma Psi Zeta is also historically Asian. So these 8 groups make up our Intercultural Greek Council on our campus. Alpha Phi Alpha and Kappa Alpha Psi, they both also have asterisks after their names. So we'll note that those are our 2 citywide organizations, as Anthony was mentioning. So they hold a charter at the University of Pennsylvania. So their chapter exists on that campus, but because there are multiple campuses on that charter, it means that we can initiate men on our campus that are a part of that same chapter. So they do events and programs on our campus, at Penn, at Drexel, etc. So they count in our tally, but that's why they have that little asterisk there when we're thinking about how many orgs are on our campus for the time being. So this is our Intercultural Greek Council. When we think about their joining process, there's a heavy level of discretion that is built into the Intercultural Greek Council organization's process. So truly what we indicate or tell students to do if they have interest, the very first step is just to talk to one of us, talk to a staff member in our office. We fully understand the importance of that discretion and of that privacy. We do not share their information with any organizations. Their name doesn't go on any list. And we are more than happy to be the ones to give them the information that they need if they are not, if they don't have the access point or don't have anyone in their family or anything like that that knows how to navigate that process. We are more than happy to be that safe place. We can have plenty of closed words conversations about what their expectations are or the ways that they want to protect their own discretion. So we are always a safe place for them. We always encourage them to come talk to us. What we often tell them, and what currently affiliated members of our IGC community would tell them as their first step, is to do your research. What we mean by that is take a look at the organizations, look at their social media pages, look at their national pages, think about what their values are, what sort of philanthropic and service work that they do, and try to figure out and tailor in on what organization your student is interested in. It's going to be a little bit of a faux pas in this space to shop around or explore multiple organizations in a public way. So doing that research privately is something that we'd always recommend to make sure that we're avoiding kind of that stigmatization of shopping around, not being sure what org you want. In other communities that Ant and I will talk about, that's very common practice. For IGC orgs, that's something that we want to try to avoid. So doing that research and then expressing interest. So going to events, introducing yourself, getting to know the members of the org, feeling out what it is that they do on campus. And just by going to those events, your students will be able to express that interest. They don't need to go up to the members and say, I'm interested in your sorority, I'm interested in your fraternity. Just by being there, they do tons of educational programs on campus. One of our groups just did an event about voter registration, which is such an impactful program and so timely and all of those great things. So just being there, showing up in that space, getting to know those members is the way that they can express their interest without outright saying, hey, I'm interested. When our groups are taking new members, they use a process called membership intake typically. And so they will host an informational or a rush meeting. There should be flyers hung around campus, but sometimes they're not always readily accessible. So again, if your student is interested, our staff would be more than happy to share that flyer with them to make sure they get the information they need, protect that discretion, but still make sure that they're able to find the resources they need for that. They'll submit an application after attending that rush or informational meeting. And if they're selected for membership, then they would go through a new member education period with a new member presentation at the end where they are publicly revealed then as a new member. So privacy and discretion are the 2 biggest pieces of the IGC joining process. There isn't a communal registration. There isn't going to be a sign up or anything like that. So really those first 3 steps are what we would encourage you to share with your student if they're most interested. Come talk to a staff member. We'll talk with them about how to do some research on the organizations they're interested in, and then talk them through how to express interest appropriately. I'll turn it over to Ant.
Awesome.
Talk a little bit about, IFC.
Thanks. So the Interfraternity Council is comprised of currently 9 member organizations: Beta Theta Pi, Delta Chi, Delta Tau Delta, Delta Upsilon, Lambda Chi Alpha, Phi Sigma Kappa, Pi Kappa Phi, Sigma Nu, and Sigma Phi Epsilon, with the addition of our 10th starting in the spring. So we have re-invited Pi Kappa Alpha, or Pike, back to join the community in spring of 2026. So we're super excited about that. And then Phi Delta Theta will be joining us in fall of 2027. So be up to 11 organizations by 2027, which is amazing. These 9 member organizations are governed by an executive team of their peers, which is consistent of 10 positions. So they help with peer-to-peer support, accountability, programming, helping facilitate recruitment, all of those exciting and fun things which are part of the fraternity experience. I will note on this slide that we did remove an organization in December of 2023. So in 2023, we removed Sigma Chi Fraternity for some allegations and incidents of hazing. So if there are students and your student is expressing that they are part of this organization, it is no longer affiliated with Villanova at this time, and we would probably want to have a follow-up conversation on what that looks like moving forward. Because they are not recognized, there's no oversight, there's no operation from the national level. So we just want to make sure that our students are having a healthy and well-balanced membership experience that has some guidance and support built in as well. IFC has 2 joining processes. So for fall, it is an informal process, which we refer to as free agency, also known as continuous open bidding, through free agency on there as a sports term to create some more buy-in for our friends in the IFC community. And honestly, they have really taken to it. So this process is geared towards sophomores, juniors, and transfers to actually join in the fall semester and go through a new member process. In the fall semester, the council and chapters will host events geared towards both the informal practices and formal practices so that they can share information, gauge in mutual interest, and start building relationships, whether they're taking folks in the fall or in the spring. I will note that not every chapter takes a new member class in the fall semester. They have autonomy to do that. So on average, between 4 and 6 chapters opt to participate in fall recruitment, and we see an average of 20 to 30 students join the IFC community in fall, but the majority join in the spring process, and even sophomores, juniors, transfers join in the spring process. Excuse me. What I will note and will emphasize is first-year students are allowed to participate in events and activities. They can come to recruitment events. They can go to their philanthropy and community service events. If they're interested and they've built that relationship and that friendship, they're allowed to go to a chapter meeting to see what that is like. Will I say it is the most vibrant experience? Probably not, but we will say that it is an experience that they are allowed to participate in. We view recruitment in this way as 365 days a year, 24/7. So we really push that 365 recruitment model. You're allowed to make friendships and gauge interest and share information year long. It's the difference between putting people through a new member education process and recruitment. So as long as first-year students are just going through recruitment events, building those relationships, all good on our end. And then when it comes to spring, this is our more structured process. So in the spring, we see an average of 300 students register for fraternity recruitment through a campus director, which will be shared in November and available to students. And it is a week-long this year structured process. So January 25th is recruitment kickoff, which is facilitated by our Interfraternity Council executive team, where we also have a keynote speaker, typically an alumni or a staff member from the institution, which is mandatory. Now, if there is an excuse and they need to miss, all they have to do is email myself. I will get them the information after, but we really do want them to attend because then there's an org fair after with all of our chapters for them to meet brothers. On January 26th is when we will close recruitment for spring 2026. It'll open sometime the week of November 17th, and then close January 26th. So I want students to be able to explore options, go to the kickoff meeting, see if it's for them, if they're a little hesitant, and then if it is, have some autonomy to sign up the day after as well. Through the 26th through the 30th, the council and chapters will host events. Typically, there is at least one event per day for the council, and then chapters have the autonomy to host their own events outside of council-sponsored events. Now, they do have to participate in council-sponsored events, so if they choose to also host more small-scale events for their own organizations, also completely fine. On January 31st, which is a Saturday, is bid day. So students who are invited to join organizations will receive communication of, hey, here's the time and place of when bid day will come. Please come make your selections, get your fun recruitment t-shirt or hat, whatever kind of swag they're giving away this year, and officially accept membership into that organization. Membership for first-year students is not official until January 31st, and that is facilitated through our office and the Interfraternity Council executive team. On February 1st, we have a Office of Fraternity and Sorority Life new member orientation, which goes through bystander intervention, hazing prevention, alcohol and other drugs awareness, sexual violence prevention. They will also learn about the fraternity and sorority life community in more depth, learn about some student success around time management and stress management, and then also hear from our friends from Nova Dance this year, which we're excited to include them. At the conclusion of bid day on the 31st, we will open free agency again so chapters can continue building their numbers, inviting people to join their organizations after that point. And again, not every chapter participates, but in spring, I would say between 6 and 7 typically participate in free agency to continue building membership and exploring options for folks to invite.
Okay, I'm going to talk a little bit about the Panhellenic Recruitment Council as well, and their joining process. So I know there were lots of questions about that. I see a few coming in on the chat too, so we'll try to address those as best we can as we go along. There are 8 Panhellenic organizations that are part of our community at Villanova. So Alpha Chi Omega, Alpha Gamma Delta, Alpha Phi, Chi Omega, Tri Delta. No one calls them Delta, Delta, Delta. So Tri Delta, Delta Gamma, Kappa Delta, and Kappa Gamma as well. So these 8 organizations are part of our Panhellenic Council and make up quite a bit of our fraternity and sorority life community with that in mind. So this is a kind of a broad overview of the Panhellenic recruitment process, the structured process. So I will note, similar to Ant, that in the fall, we utilize an informal recruitment process called continuous open bidding, COB. And that is for upperclassmen or transfer students. So if your student is an upperclassman or a transfer student, they are eligible to join organizations in the fall. If not, then their primary joining process is going to be in the spring. Their registration will open up on November 3rd. So you can keep an eye out for that, remind your student. But also if they have filled out any interest form that exists or attended any Panhellenic information sessions this fall, then they will get that email directly to them with that link. It'll also be on our website, all of the things. They do come back a week early. That is pretty much the #1 question that I get. Yes, they move back to campus early. So our recruitment process for them will start on January 6th. I believe that is a Tuesday evening, if I am correct. Yes. So move-in will happen on that day. So the university is closed for winter break and doesn't open until January 5th. So we need that day to make sure that our staff are able to get back on campus, make sure that rooms are unlocked, cleaned, all of those good things. So your students should plan to move back to campus on January 6th. If for some reason you, there's time zone differences or things like that that make that a little bit tricky, you can have your student reach out to Panhellenic, to myself, whoever, and we can talk about accommodations and if we're able to offer them. But the vast majority should plan to move back on January 6th. I will also note it's January, so weather does what weather does. And last year we had some challenges related to weather as well. So I can't say what the specific accommodations will be because I don't know what day we may get bad weather on. But please rest assured that if there are issues that impact flights or moving back in or the university being open or anything along those lines, we'll make adjustments. I would say the likely adjustment is that we'll move things, if they are in person, we'll move them online is likely what the adjustment will be depending on what the situation is, but that's typically the route that we'll take. They have to move back early because these are some long days and we need all of the space on campus for the number of women that participate in our process. So they'll move back in on the 6th. There's a recruitment kickoff that evening. They will do that with their small group, with their Rho Gamma. The Rho Gamma is a recruitment counselor similar to the orientation counselor that they probably worked with as they came back or as they arrived at campus as a first-year student, if they are a first-year student this fall. So they'll meet with their Rho Gamma and the other members of the Rho Gamma group that evening, typically a group between 15 and 18 women. We'll do a presentation, talk about the week, kind of do some get to know you activities, think about what it is we're looking for in the recruitment process, things of that nature, and then they'll have dinner with their small group. Our rounds will officially start on January 7th. So we do 3 rounds. Sisterhood is our first round, philanthropy is our second round, and our third round is preference. So sisterhood round takes place over 2 days. We split it up and they're both conducted on Zoom. So we do expect students to still be back on campus because, as we've noted, weather can be unpredictable. So we'd like to make sure everyone is back and in person, ready to go. It gives us some flexibility doing that first round on Zoom as well for those travel arrangements to make sure that our participants can be in person on the 9th and 10th. So it's conducted over Zoom. On the first day, our PNMs, or potential new members, will meet between 4 to 5 of our chapters. And then on our second day, they'll meet the remaining 2 to 3. I'll note that of the 8 organizations on our campus that I mentioned on the first slide, 7 of them participate in the primary recruitment process. Our 8th, Alpha Gamma Delta, has opted not to participate in structured recruitment. They utilize that informal recruitment method. They just find that to be more personable, more human, more just authentic. This process that I'm describing can be a little bit odd. So they utilize that process to try to destigmatize some of the challenges that come with Panhellenic recruitment. At the end of sisterhood round, at the end of each round, our potential new members will submit preferences, meaning that they will say, these are the organizations that I enjoyed my time with the most. And our chapters will do a similar process. We'll do some matching and build a schedule for them then for the next round on the 9th, our philanthropy round, which is held in person. So the chapters are spread out across different rooms on campus. We do not have fraternity or sorority life housing, so we use multi-purpose space around campus to host their events. And PNMs can visit a maximum of 5 chapters. So they could be invited back to 5, 4, 3, 2, or 1. So depending on what those matches look like, they'll meet those chapters that day, talk about the philanthropic initiatives that the chapters really are invested in, spend a lot of time raising money towards. And again, that evening, they'll submit preferences again. We'll run that matching to create their schedule for their preference round, and then preference round will be held on January 10th. It's also held in person on campus, and they can visit a maximum of 2 chapters. So if they visited 5, 4, 3, or 2 on philanthropy round, they could be invited back to a maximum of 2. Obviously, if they only saw 1 chapter on philanthropy round, then they'll see that same chapter again on preference round if they're invited back. At the end of our preference round, they'll complete a document called an MRABA. It stands for Membership Recruitment Acceptance Binding Agreement. You don't need to memorize that. It's a mouthful, but the gist of it is that they are indicating which organizations they would be open to join. And then we use that information to compare to the chapters list and try to make the most optimum matching for them. If they've been matched with an organization, then the 11th is our bid day. It's a Sunday right before classes start. So we do a joint bid day celebration, and then they split off by chapters to celebrate separately. So they'll go roller skating or to a trampoline park or something along those lines as well. So they do some sort of celebration together. I'm trying to think what else would be helpful on this day. I think that's the gist of the process. So it's about a week long. Classes start that Monday. So that is why we have them move back in a little bit early to make sure that we can get through everything with plenty of time for them to be prepared for classes that start the next day too. I'll note that a common question that we get is that Anthony and I are spending this time with you all tonight, but we also want to make sure you know that your students have access to this information too. So we had a Panhellenic recruitment information session last week for students. We have another one coming up later in October for them as well, if they'd like to attend that. And then our office will also be hosting a Panhellenic Recruitment 101 for parents. So we're not going to do super deep dives into rounds and numbers and matching and all of those things tonight, just because we know we have a larger audience for folks that may not be super interested in the nitty gritty of that. But we will host a more in-depth recruitment 101 for parents about Panhellenic recruitment process a little bit later. IFC is doing the same thing. So they will host some information sessions for gentlemen that are interested in joining an IFC fraternity. So those dates are listed there. I think it's the first Thursday of every month, Anthony, is that right? Lovely.
Yes.
And then similarly, Anthony will host an IFC Recruitment 101 session for parents, date to be determined, but the week of November 17th. So you can put those on your calendars. If you've registered for this webinar, then we obviously have your email address. So we'll make sure that you get access to that registration as well.
And additionally, IFC will offer some dates outside of Thursdays because we have some students reaching out that Thursdays don't work for them. So we will be adding additional ones, which will be posted on their Instagram. Awesome. So want to dive into the membership experience. I've seen a few questions about folks asking if we're going to dive into this. So yes, thanks for staying tuned. So in spring of 2024, we partnered with the Piazza Center at Penn State, who is the leading research center on fraternity and sorority life experience, to do their fraternity and sorority life experience survey. Now, we run this every 2 years, so coming up, we will also be doing this to collect more recent data. But what we saw were the top 3 reasons for students joining organizations were 1, friendships, 2, the social opportunities. Again, by nature, fraternities and sororities are social organizations and offer that experience of brotherhood, sisterhood, siblinghood, bonding, sense of community, all of those amazing features. And then the third was philanthropy and service, which aligns very much with the values of the institution and what we see our organizations doing on a semesterly basis, participating in service opportunities, raising fundraising dollars for organizations that are close to their hearts. So this has been really trending. Now, something I would like to note is leadership development for years was not in our top 4 across the nation. And now we are starting to see that trend as a national, as we look at national data. And we are really adapting what our experiences at Villanova look like to meet the needs of our students. We know that they are involved in so much, and we want to make this a meaningful leadership experience both personally and professionally so they can leverage their fraternity and sorority life experience outside of Villanova in their 4 years here. Additionally, when it comes to sense of belonging, when our students were surveyed, 73% of them shared that they found a greater sense of community by joining a fraternity or sorority during their Villanova experience. While 88% shared that the fraternity and sorority experience was valuable to them and they received mentorship at either the peer level, alumni level, or staff/faculty level, which is amazing to hear and see. And then 97% shared that they have been able to create positive relationships within their own organizations and across the different communities as a part of being a fraternity and sorority life member. So this helps us see the data trends in why our students are joining, what they're getting out of the membership experience, and why it is valuable to them.
So when we're thinking also about what membership experience looks like, I think that was a question that we saw quite a bit in registration as well. So here is a laundry list of things that the chapters as a whole may participate in. So it doesn't necessarily mean that your specific student as a member will do every single thing on this list, but chapter meetings, new member education, new member classes, philanthropic events, service events, a lot of them do, we put it as here as XYZ week. So they may host a week-long series of events, right? Different tables and different days. If your student ends up as a chapter leader or a president, then there may be classes and roundtables and meetings with us as advisors. If they're just a general member, then there's usually a weekly community meeting. We have later, but a weekly chapter meeting. So it's usually about an hour, usually on Sundays. They may have the opportunity to attend different conferences and conventions. They'll participate in end of year reports, recruitment or intake processes. So really they do a lot. It's a very robust experience, but it also is very much a, you get in what you put out of it or you get out what you put in. So if this is an experience that your student is wanting to really dive into, then yeah, it could be a large time commitment in some aspects. But in other ways, because some of the organizations operate on different structures and processes and sizes and all of those things, there's also an opportunity to just be a member, go to some events, go to the weekly meetings, and not make it something that is the dominant experience that they're having. So there's an opportunity to kind of choose your own adventure, if you will, with membership, since there are so many different ways to be involved at various levels. When we're looking at time commitment, broadly, they kind of pocketed it into these 3 different categories. So the new member experience would obviously be the time frame from when they first join, accept a bid, become a member, through initiation, and go through the education about their organization. So they'll learn about the founders of their organization, the history of their organization, the history of their chapter at Villanova, the values that their organization were founded on, how those are lived out, what sort of philanthropic and service initiatives are important to the organization, to the chapter specifically, what expectations of membership are, right? Making sure they're following bylaws and standing rules and all of those different pieces. So usually that time commitment, I like to equate it as like taking an additional class. It's probably going to take up an hour or 2 of your week each week pretty consistently. If you're looking at an IFC or Panhellenic organization, if you're looking at a culturally based organization, then it might be really like consolidated. So it's going to be like high intensity kind of frequency. So I would say usually every night for like a 2-week period, and then it lets up. So it's a little bit different. Like Panhellenic and IFC might be spread out a little bit more. Our culturally based groups might be a little bit more compact. The active member experience kind of touches on what we just went through. Could be any of those things. It could be none of those things. It could be 1 or 2 of those things. But it's really dependent on what sort of leadership roles and what sort of engagement that your student is looking for. So if there's an opportunity for them to be more involved and they take that on, then that active member experience is going to be more fruitful, more fulfilling, and really take up more of their time, especially if we assume a leadership role for the organizations. But then also that alumni engagement piece too is the benefit or the piece that pays off as they're going into their senior year, second semester, transitioning into that alumni piece, and both becoming an alumni themselves, as crazy as that may be to think about, it's that far down the line. But also building that network with current alumni to make sure that this experience that they're having doesn't stop at Villanova. These organizations are lifelong memberships. And so I'm sure you may have heard the cliche, not 4 years for life. But it is something that can be a lifelong membership experience if you engage that way and connect with alumni and build those relationships to expand past your college years. So the commitment may depend on what period of membership that you're in, but is pretty consistently, I would say, along the lines of you will get out what you put in. The experience that you want is the experience that you can curate for yourself within the organization.
Absolutely. And then when it comes to programming and events, we broke this out into 3 different segments. The first is around educational programming. So our office provides education and support around chapter operations, diversity, equity, inclusion, and belonging, health and wellness, and leadership development as our 4 core pillars around education. Our students are also very involved, as I mentioned, in service and philanthropy. So they are hosting community service opportunities themselves, partnering with other organizations on campus, both within the fraternity and sorority life system and outside of it. They are hosting events to support their national philanthropic connections or local philanthropic connections. Many of our organizations find local causes in the Villanova, Greater Philadelphia region to support. And then they also are engaging in campus-based programs like Special Olympics, Nova Dance, St. Thomas Day of Service. So very much the experience leans towards that service and philanthropic lens. More on the philanthropic lens sometimes, but engaging in those high-level service opportunities, which is amazing. And then social connections, as I mentioned. OFSL-sponsored activities, we host a bunch of different activities throughout the year, from our FSL awards to new member orientations and our signature Meet the Greeks event. So really time for our students to connect with each other and then potential new members. All of our organizations host brotherhood or sisterhood events, some formal, some informal. Those look different across communities and chapters, but each hosts them. And then they participate in social engagements. Social engagements are facilitated through our office in terms of they register events at third-party venues, and we have a process for that, which we work with our Office of Risk Management for.
So I want to pivot now and think about ways that y'all can support your students if they have interest in joining one of the organizations within the fraternity and sorority life community. So this synopsis, again, we kind of categorize it into these 3 different sections here. So the first thing that we would recommend for y'all is to ask questions, have conversation with your students and help them think about what they want from a membership experience. Help them identify their personal values and learn about why they want to join. I think there's lots of stigma in the world about fraternities and sororities, and it is okay if you have some hesitation or some concerns. I think what's more important is that you're letting your student guide that experience and asking them what it is that they're looking for and asking them about the ways that you can support them. Opening those lines of communication early so your student knows that you are there as a support system for them throughout this new experience, and that you're open to learning more and hearing more about their experience, okay? The second thing is just listening and validating their experience. The process for joining, regardless of which council, fraternity, sorority, community that your student is interested in, it might be an unfamiliar one for your student, and there may be highs and lows of that process. So oftentimes they really just need a listening ear. They just need to be supported. They're not asking for us to fix anything or change anything about their experience. They may just feel like they need someone in their corner to validate what it is that they're experiencing. And so making sure that we're letting them kind of guide that experience and just being a support system for them. That's the number one question that we get, is just, what should I do if my student is upset or experiencing a challenge or anything like that? And they're coming to you just for love and reassurance. The last thing then is encouraging them to advocate for themselves. We want them to own their experience and to learn how to use the resources themselves before, during, after joining, anywhere throughout that process. Part of going to college, as we mentioned, is that co-curricular learning. So learning the soft skills and advocating for themselves throughout that. All of our staff are happy to meet with your student if they ever have questions or concerns, but we want to hear from them. It's so hard sometimes when we're going through a middleman and we're trying to deduce what's happened, and we really want them to get comfortable advocating for what it is that they want, and coming to us if they need their questions answered about that. All information about the FSL experience is going to be sent directly to your student, starting from when they fill out our interest form. So help encourage them to be the leader in their own experience, and encourage them to really take ownership of what it is that they want out of it.
Amazing. Gonna now share about the health and safety within new member education. Wanted to share more as the health and well-being human. I'd be remiss to not talk about the new federal law that was introduced in December of 2024, the Stop Campus Hazing Act, which now requires institutions to relook at their hazing prevention practices, their response practices, by one, developing an updated definition of hazing, which is provided through the law, but also can be customized in the scope of what is offered to the institution. We now have more mandated reporting requirements, which include annual security reports, which offers detailed incidents of any issues that are regarding hazing to be submitted on a biannual basis and also advertised on our institutional website. Update our policies around hazing prevention for the institution. Added transparency report to that as well, which is another level of reporting that we will work as an institutional body around, and then develop really comprehensive prevention and response programs for students, faculty, and staff. So this really is a holistic view of how to create safe environments for students, faculty, staff, and give everyone the proper tools to make sure those are in place. As a part of the fraternity and sorority experience, we are not, what is the correct word? We understand that this could be a part of the fraternity and sorority experience from the national level. We've seen it, right? We can't deny that it has been a part of the fraternity and sorority culture across the nation. So it's not unique to the FSL experience. However, we do want to make sure that our students feel safe and that we are properly supporting them. So from a new member education standpoint, we ask all of our chapters, no matter the council, to submit their new member education plans, which are reviewed by staff members. We have conversations about them, and then they are approved by the chapter president, chapter new member educator, chapter national representative also views and signs off on them, and then our office. So we're the last ones to sign off after having those conversations. Those new member plans, once approved, should be shared with new members of the organization. Your new members should expect to know kind of what is coming up, what is the time commitment, what is the expectation around them when it comes to joining a fraternity or sorority. So we want to make sure that they have all of the information up front and that it is transparent. So make sure that if your student is joining an organization, to ask them if they received that copy, and if not, to request it from the organization that they are joining. I also would love to mention on this slide that consenting to hazing or participating in it does not mean that it's not hazing, right? Consent does not equal it being okay when it comes to hazing practices. Sometimes we hear from students, well, I was okay with it, or I agreed to it. That does not diminish that the emotional, physical, those things are harmed, right? Psychological pieces. And then when it comes to signs and behaviors, wanted to share, this is not an exhaustive list, but just want to share kind of the most common practices that we see and that are shared in the Stop Campus Hazing Act around what could be signs of hazing. So sudden change in behavior after joining the group, physical, mental, or emotional exhaustion, lack of communication or avoidance, claiming the experience they're having in the group are acceptable. So kind of mitigating that or diminishing what is actually happening. Decreased performance in school or other activities, physical abnormalities, weight loss, change in mood, canceling plans with their friends sporadically, or self-isolating, or acts of servitude, calisthenics are also included in that. So we just want to be transparent about what signs look like and ensure you that we have safeguards in place at the institutional level to respond to any kind of reports, and we have a zero tolerance policy for hazing at Villanova.
What I'll note on that is we have a zero tolerance policy if we know about it. You all know your students best, and oftentimes if we're opening those channels of communication early on, like we mentioned, they may share these things with you before they share them with us. So please don't wait. If you hear about these things from your students, things that seem small can escalate into things that might be more problematic than we anticipate. So we encourage you to reach out if you have questions or concerns, because you know them better than we do at this point. So.
And then when it comes to reporting, you can report in a variety of different facets. One is to contact an OFSL staff member. The best way to contact us generally is ofsl@villanova.edu. You can submit to a campus partner by contacting the Dean of Students or our care team. Our Title IX office, public safety, residence life are also great. All of these folks also serve on our comprehensive hazing prevention and response work group. That is a multidisciplinary group of faculty and staff that work together on prevention and response efforts. And then online options include reporting through Ethics Point, our climate concern report. There is a specific hazing report form, and then a sexual misconduct form as well, depending on the nature of what is happening.
Yeah,
and
lastly, we
our...
have, oh, perfect.
Go ahead.
We have our contact information. So there's a link to our website. I don't think you can click it, but there's a link to our website there. Our Instagram is there as well. Our office is located in Doherty Hall. We're right across from the Wildcard office if you're familiar with the space by chance, or if you just want to stop by if you're around. And then like Anthony said, the easiest way to contact us is truly via email. So it's ofsl@villanova.edu, and then our main office line is there as well. So you're always welcome to reach out if you have questions or concerns.
And we did just switch to Zoom phone, so we're all still learning.
Yes. I think we'll turn it back to Karita for questions. Would you like me to continue sharing screen or turn that off?
You can turn that off if you'd like.
Okay.
Yeah, that's fine. So thank you very much, everybody, for the presentation. I think that what you saw to our guests who are joining us tonight is there's a lot of depth here, and there's a lot of thought and a lot of information. So this was really intended to be an overview for all of you. And Anthony and Jen are going to be hosting more in-depth sessions, as a reminder, for specific to fraternities and sororities. So you can get into more of the minutia and the detail about what to expect during the recruitment process and also the new member process. So just from a high level, I wanted to ask probably 4 questions. We do have reports running, so we will try to get back to people that we do have emails for and that aren't joining us anonymously tonight. So we will be able to get back to more specific questions at the bottom of this via email. But one of the pervasive questions that we saw are, our students are interested in this process. They do their due diligence. They come to information sessions and they go through recruitment. Do most of the students in fraternities and sororities find an organization to join?
With IGC, I would say it's tentative, right? We don't have all of those numbers since their processes are private, so I can't speak to like a statistic on that, unfortunately. Within Panhellenic, typically enrollment has increased this year, but typically we see about 600 women register and we typically place somewhere around 500, 530, somewhere in that ballpark. I don't know what that exact percentage is, but what I will note is that we release very few women. So typically single digits. I want to say maybe 1 or 2 or 3, but we do see a significant number of those women. That gap is made up of women who have self-selected out of the process at some point. So they start the week with us and at some point decide they don't want to continue in the recruitment process. So we don't release a lot, if any, women, but that is, I don't know what that exact percentage is, but that's the breakdown.
For the Interfraternity Council, we are at a 70% placement rate, 30% non-placement rate, and that has been trending up. So one of the reasons we are doing growth right now is to kind of bridge that gap and offer other fraternity experiences to students. So we are hopeful to get to kind of an 80-20 this year, or hopefully Dream World 90-10, noting that people also self-select out of the process or no longer have interest in continuing the process. So we are trending up with that, but currently as of spring of 2025, it was 70% placement, 30% did not receive membership invitations in the first round.
Thank you. Cost, we're always, especially in these days, are looking at what we're spending, not just for tuition, but for experiences here on campus. Can you give us a ballpark or a feel for what those costs would look like for a new member, and then, progressively through the time that they're here at Villanova?
Yeah. I'll say blanket statement for all 3 communities. Semester 1, most expensive. So that number is gonna look and feel high because it is high. And then it usually settles out to a more manageable rate. So for our intercultural Greek organizations, I usually tell students, I don't know the specifics, again, discretion is a big part of that process. I'd say have no less than $1,000 in mind for that joining fee at that point. It usually drops down quite a bit. I want to say somewhere in like the $300 to $400 mark then per semester is what I would estimate. But that first semester is expensive. For our Panhellenic organizations, registration for recruitment is $100 paid one time. It supports the cost of running that program. First semester dues are somewhere in the $600 to $800 range. Active member dues, so every following semester, closer in like the $400 to $500 range. Again, depends on the organization, depends on whether or not their dues are all encompassing, or if there are other little things here and there, tickets for buses to the tailgates and things like that, that kind of end up being extra costs kind of on the side sprinkled throughout. And then
for the Interfraternity Council, new member experience is the most expensive fee, just because there's first time initiation fees, one-time fees. So it ranges for our community between $650 and $950, depending on the organization, what their new member fees are, their initiation fees from the national organization. What the active chapter membership fees are between $350 and $750. Again, each organization takes a different approach with their membership fee structure, and they use a scaffolding approach. So typically, you pay the most as a first-year student, second, and then it gets lower as second year, it gets lower as a junior, and then by senior year, it's the lowest cost, because typically for our Interfraternity Council, that is when it's like heavy internship season, and they're less engaged with the community, they have less time, so they pay for the membership experience that they can have value in and participate in.
Right. Makes sense. We are going to, again, I know we're going to get more into the detail of the new member process when you host your specific fraternity and sorority sessions. But can you give a general idea of what right looks like, you know, what a typical healthy week for a new member would look like once they've joined an organization. And just kind of an overall idea. And then I think that you can be more specific about some of the meetings and the social events that each of the fraternities and sororities hold.
Sure. I think typically when we look at new member educations, you're looking at 1 to 2 hours of new member education facilitated with at least the new member educator and some subsection of the organization. S- uh, Study hours for organizations, typically optional, but what are highly encouraged, especially for new members, to attend, have that mentorship from upperclassmen. Those also range in terms of what options look like and what is provided for them. I would say anywhere between 1 and 3 is the typical that our students are participating in, and that is new members and active members. And then sprinkle in brotherhood or sisterhood events, depending on what that looks like, informal or formal. But typically I would say no more. It should not be any more than 3 to 4 hours of new member education, study hours, participation in chapter activities.
All right.
Yeah, same.
Okay, great. And then just backing up a little bit, I don't know if you can maybe just highlight information sessions. 1, are they required? 2, will they be, if a student can't make it because of a practice or like a standing job or, like you said, class, which is very important and a priority. What can they do, or what should those students do that are interested in joining but can't attend?
From the Panhellenic lens, we did one in person last week. The next one that we're doing is a webinar, so we're happy to record that and make that available. I would also say, with love to my students, it's not groundbreaking information that we're covering, so it is okay if you don't make it. We have a guidebook, which is a resource that gets sent out to anyone who registers for recruitment as well. It's usually linked on our website once it's updated. And that is also a very comprehensive guide. So it is not make or break. There are no active sorority members there to gauge whether or not you came or not, or what you wore, if you were nice or anything like that. So it is not required, obviously recommended, but it's okay if folks don't make it, but we'll be recording that one. So that should be available online.
Yeah, for IFC, they do require at least attending 1 info session, but that also includes recruitment kickoff. So if you can't make a weeknight, that is okay. We are going to add more options on maybe a Monday or Wednesday, so it's out of that Tuesday time block for classes and clubs. And then the recruitment info session or kickoff is on a Sunday in spring. So if they can make that, they should be fine. But that is a decision made by the council.
Great. All right. Seeing that we're 2 minutes past 8 o'clock, and I think we probably could keep going on with this. Anthony and Jen, you did a great job, and we got to most of our live questions this evening. Thank you to everybody that did submit those. A couple of them we couldn't get to because they do deserve a longer conversation than what we can give to them. So I saw that Sarah did share her direct email address for those. Again, as a reminder, ofsl@villanova.edu is an excellent resource for very specific questions as well. This event has been recorded, so we are going to be posting that, one, to my website, villanova.edu/family, under the resources section. You'll see this along with some other recordings that we've done already throughout the year. And then OFSL will also be posting it. We'll also send this out as a recording link so that you can watch it at your leisure, as you're cooking dinner, or at any point, along the way during this process or later on as January approaches. So again, thank you very much for sharing your time to our presenters and our panelists. Sarah, thank you very much for being our chat bot behind the scenes. You did an excellent job. And thank you to our parents who are always engaged, and we enjoy walking through this process with you, sharing this information so that you can have those healthy conversations and help students make great decisions as they move through their time here at Villanova.